Hey, okay, cool. Starting to happen. Starting to populate. What's going on, you guys? Everybody say something so I can make sure. We should all be able to talk to each other just like we're in the same room together here. So
Unless you're muted,
we'll
so
be able
make
to
sure
hear
make
each
sure
other
you're
just fine.
greetings from Nashville.
I
That is
can hear
currently
Devin. I can hear somebody. Is that David Freeman that I can barely hear?
It's me.
Yep.
Okay, there you are.
I think
Sound
this
like
is
you're in a
cool.
tuna can.
I can see I can see Simon's Simon's got to do text because he's sharing his room with his fiance at the moment, so this is cool.
Okay, cool. That's right. That's right. He couldn't extricate his fiance.
Because
This is
he's
Jeremiah.
sharing his room with his fiance at the moment, so
Domestic bliss.
Okay.
Feel your pain, dude.
because he's sharing his room with his fiance at the moment, so
All right, this is coming together. Jamie,
Cool. Can anyone
awesome.
hear this? I don't have a mic. I don't have a camera.
Jeremiah,
Can you hear this?
What's up, Dino?
there's Holty right there.
What's going on, buddy?
His big mug.
Yeah.
If anyone can hear
doing,
me, say
man?
Apple.
Good, good. Good to see everyone connected.
Apple.
Okay, good. Cool.
Yeah, I got you, Jeremiah. I can hear you loud and clear. Cool.
Good, good. Good to
All
see
right,
everyone.
cool. Well, I'm gonna hang on. Let me go back over to the Spreecast. Just make sure that everybody knows where we're at here. Clear. Steve.
Good to see everyone.
I'm gonna hang on. Let me go back over to the Spreecast. Just make sure that everybody knows where we're at here. Clear. I'm gonna hang on. Let me go back over to the Spreecast. Just make sure that everybody knows where we're at. See ya. You have audio? Guys, if you're using external speakers, try and put in some cans and turn off your speakers because the feedback loop is going to be terrible if we're all listening externally. You got to have headphones or it won't work.
Ah, thank you for that.
Freeman, turn your camera on, you big pansy.
This should be on. Hang on.
Quit hiding. There you are. Okay, bear with me just 1 second, guys. I'm so sorry this is such a disaster. It always happens this way, man. Devin, remember the last time it took us like an hour to figure this out?
yeah, it was not
I thought
fun.
we had it this time, and here we are.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like a Wile E.
I'm gonna try
Coyote
and
sometimes.
just get a couple of more of these guys in here. There it is. I'm just going to post the link to my Facebook page real quick so that anybody who's trying to figure out what the hell's going on knows where we're at. And then I'm going to ditch this Spreecast thing because it's eating my bandwidth alive. Hey, Devin, will you share this link over on the Rebel Creative Facebook page so
Yeah.
that we can make sure that everybody knows where to redirect to? Cool.
Yep.
Thank you. I think there's a couple of people over there looking around for it right now. Knows where to redirect to. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think there's a couple of people over there looking around for it right now. Knows where to redirect to. Guys, please, if you're using external speakers, turn them off and put headphones on, so that we don't all have to listen to a feedback loop. Guys, please, it'll really help. Speakers, turn them on. Put headphones on, so that we don't all have to listen to a feedback loop. Really help. Speakers, turn on.
I see a map of the world on there. Are those all the places you've been in dark that are dark?
Me? No, that's just a map of the world.
What is it?
Yeah, I see that.
It's just, you know, I have a map of the world, because why not?
Right on.
Awesome. Paul, awesome, dude. I was hoping
Hey.
you'd show up.
Yeah,
How
man,
you doing,
we're
man?
a little late in leaving, but you know I'm gonna have to pop out. I just wanted to show my face and say hi to everybody, and thank you for putting on such a great thing.
It's okay, man. We're just getting started because the Spreecast thing took a dump on us, so we had to
Yeah, so I was
switch.
a little confused, but I figured it out.
Here's Steve. Great, good to see you, man.
What's up?
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we can go ahead and start. I mean, there'll be more people probably piling on as we go through, but sorry for the technical confusion, and sorry for the drag racing sounds in the background here. I'm probably in the worst location possible to be doing this. I'm in an outdoor breakfast cafe in Sydney, Australia, so it's a little noisier than I had hoped for, but you know, what are you gonna do? So, welcome.
Why are you
I'm
in
glad you guys
Australia?
could make it. Thanks for bearing with all the technical difficulties. I'm here because I'm playing tomorrow night with Natalie Imbruglia. We're doing a show. It's a charity function for Kylie Minogue's charity. She does a charity thing every year for underprivileged kids. And
Oh, nice.
and so
Yeah.
tomorrow night we have not tomorrow night, tonight, Monday night here. We have a show at 7 or 8. So should be
Oh,
fun.
we'll break a leg.
It's the first
Have a
time
great
I've done it.
Yeah.
And thanks, man. We drummers try to not break legs because it's bad luck. But point taken.
Hey, just ride that hi-hat, man.
Can't do a whole hell of a lot when you don't have your legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Well, the way this would have worked on Spreecast, for those of you who weren't here last November when we did this the first time, it's a really cool functionality. Unfortunately, you have to have super, super high strength happen. And my bandwidth here is not as good as they told me it's going to be. But I thought it would be good enough, and it's really not. And so Devin and I have been testing it for the last hour, and it's just been up and down, up and down. For a while it was great, and then it took a crap on us, and then, you know. So we'll just do it this way. We did a Google Hangout on air, which means there's only going to be able to be 10 of us in the thing down here in this little strip that you see below at a time. But
Oh,
it'll be
geez.
archived for everybody to watch, and as many people as possible, or as, you know, there's no limitation on people who can watch it in real time. So even though there's only 10 people at a time that can talk at once, there's probably, I don't know how many viewers. I guess right now it's fluctuating between 4 and 5 viewers, other than those of us who are talking in real time right now. So that may decrease or increase as we go, but I'll archive this so that people can watch it later, and it'll also be on YouTube, on my
Do you know
YouTube
if
channel,
the
so that people can watch it
viewers
later.
can leave comments for you to reply?
I think the group chat works for everybody. The group chat over on the right-hand side of the page there works for everybody, and Devin will keep an eye on that questions.
Okay.
But I think it's kind of a first come first serve. Like if there's a slot, if somebody drops out of this live chat here that we're all talking in right now, somebody else will automatically jump in, and you may lose your place. So if you have to, if you have to leave, for instance, some of you I know have to leave early or can't stay for very long. As soon as you bail, somebody else will automatically fill in that slot. So I think that's kind of how it works. Yeah, Devin, I tried the Q&A thing, and it didn't work, and I didn't want to spend any more time on it, so I just figured we'll just do it like this. Everybody can hear everything that everybody's saying. They just can't respond with their voice unless they're part of this bottom row here. Okay? So everybody say hi to Simon's fiance. There she is in the background right there.
Hello.
Fiance.
Hey.
He's like, hey, what's up? All right. So since we don't have the question and answer functionality, I know a couple of you were queued up already with questions. So let's just jump right into it. Does anybody have anything specific that they brought that they'd like to talk about that we can just kind of lead off as an icebreaker? Not to put anybody on the spot, but
Yeah, I specifically do, actually. Can I ask mine?
okay, go for it.
Uh,
Yeah, introduce yourself.
I have been
Tell everybody
asked
where
to-
you're at, what you do,
okay.
and then go for it.
Okay. Hey, guys. My name is Steve Letness. I'm a composer guy in Minnesota, mostly for films, but recently I've been asked to write more music for songs. So, Dean, I wanted to ask you, at what point is it appropriate to be paid a fee, like as a session musician for your work, as opposed to asking for a percentage? Because in this case, I am writing like string music behind a hip hop tune. So generally, am I simply paid because I'm just adding some backing nice notes? So what would be the difference from just getting a fee and actually asking for a percentage? And is that appropriate? At what level is that appropriate?
When you say percentage, what do you mean exactly? Like, you mean like a percentage of sales? Or a percentage of
publishing share?
Budget?
No, just like a writer share.
Oh, I see.
Publisher
Okay.
share. Again,
Are they asking you to arrange? Are they asking you to actually arrange parts, or are they just asking you to play? Just do what you do. Do it feels right, Stephen. You know, just whatever. Send us what you come up with.
Okay. All right. We'll do, man. I am actually
which of those?
I am writing parts, yeah.
You're writing parts, so you're arranging for them.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
So okay. Sorry, there's a delay. So as an arranger, then you're not writing part of the song. You're just arranging parts and then playing them. And so if it was me, I would ask for a flat fee to do that. You can't really, unless you're altering the structure of the tune, and meaning you're writing a new section, or you're writing lyrics, or you're writing music for it, meaning you're writing a new section basically, or you're rewriting a section of it that's already been written, and they're asking you to actually physically alter the structure of the song musically, then you would be a co-writer. There's been countless instances throughout the history of music Jesus, of people doing a lot less than you're doing and getting co-writing credit, but to keep it clean and keep it simple, unless they're specifically asking you to purposefully rewrite or write part of the tune, I would keep it clean and just ask for an arrangement fee or a session fee, or both. You could do both. You could ask for something that's a little bit higher than an arrangement or session fee, and then just tell them, I'm doing both. I'm charging you for both an arrangement fee and a session fee separately but together. You know what I mean? Like as a package.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and it keeps it clean as opposed to asking for writer share, because all I'm doing is writing over the top of a pre-existing 4-minute piece. So in this instance, I feel like you're right. Keep it clean, keep it simple, arranging and session share, but don't add fee, but don't ask for a share in this instance. Since I'm not altering the song in any way. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to kind of dogpile on that too. I mean, this happened. This is a very, very common scenario too. You ask for that fee, right? And they're like, "Oh, great, okay, cool. You're just arranging, blah blah blah." And then you give them the stuff, you do the work, and then they go, "Hey, can you maybe massage the verse a little bit so it sounds cool?" Then they start asking you to actually write part of the song, right? Because you've done all this work, you've done, they've seen what you can do and they dig it, they like it, and so now they want you to actually be a co-writer, but they don't want to give you co-writing credit, right? So at that point, just make sure that you cover yourself and you go, well, you know what, this kind of moves, and this is like project creep, right? It kind of moves into territory that we didn't agree on. So if you guys now want me to be a co-writer, we need to start over from scratch contractually and make sure that we all understand each other. I've seen that happen so many times, especially in pop, where there's 13, 14 sometimes writers on one lame song, like with Justin Bieber tune, like takes 15 people to screw in a light bulb, and people just get screwed all the time because they aren't covered contractually. They started out being a producer or an engineer or arranger or a session player, and then they got asked to actually rewrite stuff later, and they just they felt weird about it or whatever. They weren't confident enough or secure enough to say, hey, wait a second, So just make sure you're covered that way, so that you don't get hammered for something that you didn't agree to,
So be prepared for project creep. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Imagine that, right? I think we've all probably dealt with that at some point in some form.
I bet.
Okay. Who else?
Come on, Melancon, you're the one who's got a
else?
director thing. You got a question for Dean?
Is Paul in here?
Yep, I'm still here.
Recap.
Still here. Can you hear me?
I don't.
Hello.
Yeah, Paul, we have you, and then we have another Paul too that I thought was here.
Okay.
Maybe he left, came and left. I'm not sure, but anyway, okay, all right.
All right, I'm just going to take this opportunity to
Well,
let
does
you guys
anybody
know
else
that
have
I'm dropping
something?
off
David,
now.
David, you, Freeman. All right, brother, man. Thanks for showing up, dude.
All right, you guys have a great one, and I'll catch
It's
this.
good to see your
It's going to be
face at
recorded,
least.
right?
Yeah, it's being recorded now. It'll be on my YouTube channel.
Cool. All right, take care,
Yep.
guys.
Cool, man. Take it easy. All right. Who else? Freeman, you were on here. I'm looking at the Spreecast page to see who was queued up to ask a question. So I've got David Freeman. I had Stephen Letness. We just talked to Stephen. And I had who else? Jeremiah?
Yeah, I don't really have a question. At least not at the moment.
Okay. All right.
I have a
Anybody else
question.
want to step up? Come on, guys. This relies on you. I could talk all day. All right, man. Go for it.
All right. It's weird with the delay, but cool. So, background: my name's Steve Davitt. I play with the band Marion Hill. They're an electronic duo. We've been friends since middle school, so it's kind of interesting in that regard. But they do all the writing, so like they're the face of the band. They do all the press stuff. I play saxophone and bass with them, and we've been doing a lot of festivals recently, and I'm trying to get just getting out there, meeting other people, musicians. But the problem I've been running into is people seem to want to go to the band members, like Jeremy and Sam, the other band members. They're like not the most social people, but other musicians, like especially producers or singers, tend to gravitate towards them. So in a conversation, even if it's all of us talking, I feel a little left out, and part of that kind of makes me feel like less valuable because I'm not part of the band as a term, and so if people haven't heard us play live, they don't really even understand what I do for the band. So like if we're meeting at a place and they haven't heard us before, but they may have heard the music online, they know what Sam and Jeremy have done. But on my end, it's like, I'm just kind of there, and Sam and Jeremy aren't the best at being like, oh, this is the saxophone player, like this is what he's doing with us, he's great, blah blah. And I have a hard time being like, I'm an integral part to the live show. I make it much more interesting. There's only 3 of us, so I'm a third of the live presence, but it feels like I'm being neglected in conversation with other people.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple of questions about that, because this is I love this topic. Did they start the band and then you joined later, or did you guys all start up at the same time?
Well, they created the group. Like Jeremy made a beat, Sam, the singer, started singing on it. They produced it. They released it. From the beginning, we've had the understanding like they're the band. They just asked me. At one point, I gave them some saxophone tracks that they remixed into one of their most popular songs. So they're like, "All right, great, let's get you in." The first show we actually played live, I was part of, and I've been part of the live show from the very beginning. So in that sense, like I am a member of the group, but as far as the band Marion Hill, they're very, I don't know, picky about having it just be the 2 of them as a duo since they write all the music, which is, to me, that's fair, but it's tricky because we're close friends. Just like the terminology of it, and some people, mostly people that I know, are like, you should be part of the band, but like I'm not really worried about that, except for the talking with other people about it aspect. Like someone who's maybe 5 years ahead in terms of a musician and their career, it's like a little complicated. Be like, I play with them, I'm not with them, but I'm still like very heavily involved in what they're doing and all this stuff.
Do you what are your goals and your plans for yourself as a player? Do you want to, and I'm leading somewhere with this, okay? But this'll help the conversation. Do you want to play with as many people as you can, or do you want to find a situation? Do you want them or another situation like them to be kind of your main thing? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what's your intent for your career? Do you want to be an all-around player and just play with as many people as possible, or do you want to have one situation that's like your home groove type deal?
I'm more of a fan of the one group kind of thing. I've done the many bands before. Like a year or two ago, I was in like 6 or 7, and that was just a little too much for me. But now we're playing more. We have a lot of gigs coming up, so like that's great. I'm starting now to play less with other people and work more on my own music as well. So like that kind of balance of performing with Marion Hill is like my main thing, and then having the opportunity to compose and in the future maybe do session work with other people, or possibly produce or remix other songs. So that's the main trajectory I am envisioning.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right. Well, here's what I think I would do if I was in your shoes. Um, if you kind of want to use them as your main thing in terms of live gigging and playing, and even session work too, if they want to invite you in on future projects. You got to have a conversation with them, man, and just say, hey, you know what? You guys are using me a lot. We're playing a lot. Things are picking up steam. Momentum is growing and coming on strong. And I want to be part of this. Like, I'm trying to think of an example in our business where here I'll give you a perfect example. My it's not really a great example right now because he's in prison, but my one of my all-time drumming mentors, Dean Castronova. We grew up in the same town. He was my next door neighbor for years and years and years. He's about 10 years older than me. And he's kind of somebody that I looked up to as I was coming up through school. He was already making it and being a famous drummer, playing with Ozzy and Bad English and Hardline and Neil Schon and Journey and all these different bands coming up. And I was still in high school. When he joined Journey and became the drummer for Journey, he worked with them for about 2 years as just a sideman because their drumming chair was just ever revolving. They went through like 5 or 6 people, kind of like they do lead singers. After Steve Perry left, they went through a whole bunch of people until they got the guy they have now, Arnold Pineda. But he worked with them for I think 2 or 3 years before finally he went to Neil Schon and Jonathan Cain and he said, hey, it's a 5-man deal, and I'm the 5th guy, and I've been here for 2 years, and I kind of want to, obviously, in this group, and I've put every other project on hold and put you guys first, prioritize this band. I wanna share. I want to share the band, and so what they did is they made him a partner, and it's a 5. And I think from what I understand from him, after they did that with him, everybody in the band became a 5-way partner. So they split everything 5 ways. Every penny gets divided up 5 ways, and they're all equal share partners. Everybody has the same vote. Everybody makes the same money. Everybody gets the same fancy hotel room. I mean, everything's all the same. But it took him going to them and saying, hey, you know what, I feel like I've earned this. I feel like I've earned it. I feel like I've invested enough. I took a chance on you guys. Now you take a chance on me, basically. You know. And here's the thing about your band leaders. If they're uncomfortable doing that with you after you've shown them that you're trustworthy, dependable, you know, you're not a somebody who's taking advantage of anything. You're not asking for anything gratuitous. You're not overstepping what you know the limitations to be of what they're able to offer, so on and so forth. And they still refuse that. It might be kind of time to think about something else, because in my if it was me, the amount of work that you've put in and the time that you've put in, they kind of owe it to you a little bit, you know. Now maybe they don't owe you a third of the partnership, if you will, or you know, whatever the pie would be there, but they definitely owe you some attention in terms of, like you're saying, you know, when people approach them and want to talk about what's going on with their organization, to not include you in the conversation's a little bit awkward at this point. You know, you're kind of past the point of at least being owed a mention, you know. Hey, thanks for the compliment, meet our saxophone player. You know what I mean? If your intent is play with as many people as you can and be a sideman and do gigs with other bands and do recording and stuff for other bands, I would, being confident in pitching yourself and putting yourself out there as a sideman, because when you attach your train to an organization, people just tend to think of you as, oh, we can't use him, he's part of Marion Hill, you know. And they don't think of you as a freelance player. They think of you as somebody who's already taken and not available. Do you know what I mean? Even if you are available and you're telling people you're available, if you're also talking to people like, hey, I'm with these guys, then that's just automatically what people think. I learned that the hard way early on when I was touring with a band, and I was happy about it, right? Like, it was a huge gig, and I kept telling people, oh, I'm with thus and such. Oh, yeah, I'm playing with thus and such. Who are you playing with right now? Oh, I'm playing with them. I'm playing with them. Instead of saying, oh, I play with a lot of different people and freelance. It tended to kind of like melt into their brain, oh, he's with them. And then later on I'd find out that they were interested in me, but they passed on me because they thought I was busy, you know? So that's the reason why I asked you to kind of quantify or qualify rather your intentions, you know, for your career in the future, because you could play it two different ways depending on what you want to have happen in the future, and maybe perhaps you might want to play it a little bit differently if your purpose is to kind of spread yourself around and be known as a kind of a sax player for hire, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and there is sort of I do have a part of me that does want to play with other bands, but it's sort of like right now I'm splitting the middle, where I'm saying I'm the saxophone player for Marion Hill, and that may be causing, you know, people to be like, oh, he's just their saxophone player, so he's unavailable or whatnot. But I'm not really getting the recognition as the saxophone player for Marion Hill.
Right.
And like in certain, like a lot of the press stuff they're doing, it's just focusing on them, but it's also, we have an album coming out at the end of the month, which I have a featuring credit on, which is really cool for me. Like, it says Mistaken featuring Steve Davitt. So it's like, great. But the rest of the album is all them, and so, you know, radio, magazines, whatever, they're just talking to them about the upcoming release, and so I'm not really mentioned. And I've talked to them about that, like, if there's an opportunity, please, you know, like, mention me, because I'm not being part of the press photos or whatever is happening. And
are you credited on the material that you play on, though? I mean, you're getting proper
Yeah.
proper
Yeah.
credit for any recording or anything that you've done, all that kind of stuff? Okay.
Right. So right now it's only one track that actually has me on it, but it is the song, like in the title, has featuring Steve Dabb on it, which is great. But there
Okay.
are certain, people write articles about the group, and they don't necessarily know or feel like doing the research to find out that I'm the saxophone player. So one of the most recent ones, for Nylon magazine, they just said, "and the saxophone player," or like they mentioned me for at least half the article, but they didn't mention me by name. So it's like, I mean, it's just kind of annoying, but like, because it's, a third party, they can't, like, my friends and the management, like, can talk to the magazine, but they can't really affect that change, which is
Well,
annoying.
here's the thing, man. I mean, honestly, if it's like Hall and Oates, right? To use an old school example, right? Everybody knows it's Daryl Hall and John Oates, and the guys in the band are just the guys in the band, and that could
Right.
change Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, who knows, right? But the act is Miriam Hill, and
Mhm.
so it's going to be tough for you to really warrant any recognition out of that because you're not part of the act. Do you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
and 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 so you might be looking for something that maybe isn't there to begin with.
Right.
If I mean, let's split it into two different things. So there's two conversations. There's the courtesy and respect that they, as your friends, should be giving you. And then there's the professional recognition that you're probably hoping for that probably isn't ever really going to happen. Because the
Mhm.
professional recognition doesn't spotlight you.
Mhm.
Even though you're on stage and you're visible and you're obviously a part of the festivities and all that kind of stuff, the articles and the press stuff and the radio interviews and the podcasts and everybody who's interested in them from a press or a promotion point of view is just going to want to talk to the two of them, and they may or may not think to ask who even is involved beyond those two people.
Right.
But as your friends and as part of the band and as really kind of a maybe almost a third partner, maybe, or at least somebody who has a vested interest at some percentage in what's going on,
Mhm.
that's a totally different conversation. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's not much you can do about the press recognition or other than ensuring contractually that you get credit for what you play on or what you do for them, which it sounds like you are just fine. uh, there's not a whole lot you can really do or expect to have happen surrounding your uh, your public awareness about you being part of the band. But your friends, the two people who are heading the band, the two people in the act, basically, that's an entirely different situation. That's a personal thing. That's almost
Mhm.
a that's almost a professional courtesy to just as much as they possibly can to promote you as somebody who has a profound impact on their sound and on their live show. And so if they're not helping you in your career as a saxophone player the way that you're helping them in their career by making them sound and look better on stage, that's kind of an uneven situation. You know what I mean? But it's entirely and wholly different from what you should expect from a professional level in promotions and press, because you probably press people just don't think that way. I never get interviewed as a drummer. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares you
Right.
know and I'm just used to that. I mean, I have drummer people who care and people who stop me and say, hey, I saw you on another tour, blah blah blah, or whatever. But it's very rare. That doesn't happen a lot. I can probably count on one hand the time that that's happened. um, and I'm just that's just the nature of the game for me. I've always been a sideman my entire life since I was a kid. So it's just I don't really expect anything else than that. Unless it's my band, then absolutely. If I'm a partner like Dean Castronovo is in Journey or was till recently, um, you know, I would expect that. I would totally expect that. But if it's if my name isn't on the marquee and or I'm not a silent partner behind the scenes and I'm an integral part of what's going on in terms of the business and the money and the promotion and all that stuff, the press photos, everything, it's kind of hard to expect them to recognize you as such when you're from the band's point of view, you're not, right?
Right.
So there's a difference there, you know what I mean? It's like you probably need to have a conversation with them as friends, as pals, as people who have a history, and hey, we're going to keep doing this together. There's no end in sight so far. Like, we're going to keep going and keep doing this. I kind of need some help from you guys. Like, I want to have a career too, and right now, you guys are the mouthpiece. You guys can help me build on, and you can phrase it however you want. I'm always going to prioritize you guys. I love you guys. I've been with you guys since the beginning, or whatever. Whatever the conversation is. But some reciprocation kind of needs to happen there, on a personal level. They sort of owe it to you. I would think.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, we have had various conversations, but most of our time recently has just been like, get on a plane, play a festival, and leave. So there hasn't really been like that much of like an intimate, like, all right, let's sit down and really talk about what's going on. It's more of like, all right, let's get ready for the show, and then after the show, it's like, woo, we played a show, let's celebrate and do whatever.
Yeah, and when you have you might want to make a pointed and concerted effort to have that conversation, and when you do, tell them exactly what we're talking about. Just say, listen, here's the thing. I know there's a line. I understand. I totally get the game. I know that the act is the two of you, and the rest of us are the band, and or the rest of me is the band, and I don't want to encroach on that. I don't want it to be, Miriam Hill and Steve. I don't want to change any of that. I'm not looking for that. Make it very, very clear to them that you're not being greedy. You're not looking for any limelight in terms of like, them altering the profits of the organization or anything like that. But tell them, but say, but on the other hand, as personal friends and as people that have, as colleagues, and we've kind of grown this thing together, and I've been an integral part of this, I need you guys to kind of like use your platform or your bullhorn, as it were, to shout me out every once in a while. When you're talking to a big magazine, or where you're talking to some reporter that has some clout and carries some weight in the industry, just throw my name in there. When they refer to your saxophone player, don't let that just go. Grab onto it and attach me to it, because that's my work you're talking about. That's my contribution that you're talking about, and I need that. I need that to grow my career and to maintain traction going forward. I think if you're honest with them and you tell them and you ensure them that you're not trying to alter the relationship in any way, you just need their help. They might be more receptive to it, and it might feel a little bit less awkward at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Great. Very
Can
helpful.
Does this work? Can I jump in?
Yeah, jump in, man.
You hear me?
Anybody got any suggestions?
Yeah, well, just to add to part of what Dean was saying, I've been, and this is not, directly helpful, but just sort of my view on things, is that I've been a lead guitar player in a band for a few years, and right now I'm playing bass in another friend's band for a few years. And one of the most interesting things that I've seen is how the interest in talking to me after shows has massively diminished as being part of the rhythm section. So that kind of goes back to what Dean was saying, where you can probably count on one hand the amount of time someone wants to talk to him after a show. because I think there's a bias by maybe concert goers or the lay person who's not necessarily a musician or reviewers to not seem to think that the rhythm section, or especially if you're like a sax player, which I guarantee a young reviewer doesn't understand. Being an alto sax player myself, I seriously doubt somebody who's going to a show right now can tell you anything about Cannonball Adderley versus Charlie Parker and or Johnny Hodges. They don't know. They don't know where it comes from. They don't know where it belongs. And definitely no one wants to talk to the bass player because they're used to someone playing eighth notes on the root, right? So there's a bias there, I think, that's already in place. And I've had non-musical friends who've known me in both bands who've said, and literally verbatim, I think a friend said, "Isn't the bass player the idiot in the band?" And I'm like, oh shit. It's funny.
You've heard too many musician jokes, yeah, haha.
Right, and it's like I understand. It's a different philosophy for sure, but that's sort of the bias that the average non-musician carries when they look at a rock band. Mm-hmm. So, like, this is sort of the unfortunate truth that no one is going to want to interview the bass player after a show.
Right.
And in terms of reviewers talking about the saxophonist, my band's had a fair bit of reviews, favorable and non-favorable alike, but nobody really does their homework past the singer that I've found.
That's true.
They'll mention who the voice is and who the front person is. Maybe the lead guitarist will get like a nod, but this just seems to be the politics of musicianship. And the sort of trends that I've seen happen from being a player in a variety of different bands for a decade or more. It's sort of like it's what comes with the territory, and I don't expect anyone to say like, and Simon Poole, who played bass in this band, was very great at hitting those 16th notes. No one's gonna care, and that's not your gig necessarily. Like I can't picture your band on stage, but I mean, rarely is the horn section front and center, unless it's like a bebop quintet. So usually there's a focal point on stage. You know who to look for, and musical parts, whether they be melody or solo, kind of dictate where to go, and everything else is just supporting casts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
it's a little different because I've been in horn bands and like horn sections and stuff, and I get all that, but our group, there's 3 of us, and I'm in the middle so that the other 2 can split center.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, when I play saxophone, it's like very visibly there's a person there.
Yeah.
Oh. Sorry, I'm getting I think the Spreecast is working now. my phone was on the Spreecast, and I just heard someone talking, and it's like, what? Oh, that's gotta be, okay. So maybe check back in there. Yeah, I don't know.
I think Spreecast actually, I think it just ended, and so now it's replaying all the non-activity for the last hour.
Gotcha.
It's a ghost cast.
Intelligent AI there they've got going. All right.
Nice.
Those are really great insights, Simon. I mean, I can totally vouch for everything that he just said, man. I mean, the funniest story, just anecdotally, I'll share before we move on is one time I was playing for an act, a pop act that was very teeny bopper centric, and I was younger too, so I don't sound like a pedophile when I'm telling the story, but I was in my mid-20s probably, and it was for Natasha Bedingfield, if anybody knows who that is, but her audience was very young, sort of a Selena Gomez type audience at the time, and nobody talked to me. Nobody gave a crap that I was even there. I mean, barely the band even cared, right? But it was a great couple of shows, and after the last show that I did for her, I was single at the time. I mean, also I'm gonna tell you that it's important. Super hot girl came up and said, "Hi." She said, "My name's Carly," and I was like, "Wow, okay, great." And she goes, yeah. She goes, wow, you're so great, and we really enjoyed it. And I said, oh yeah, are you here with your friend or something? And she goes, no, this is my dad. He works for Tama, which was my drum company. So basically, the Tama rep brought his daughter, and it was she just had nothing to do with it. She just was introducing her father, so her father could talk to me about drums, and so it was a total letdown. But it's just an illustration of just like, nobody gives a shit, man. No one cares, like.
It's like the sorry, go ahead. It's the joke of guitar players always being bothered that the second row of pretty girls is being pushed through by the row of guitar players trying to look at the pedal board. Everyone's
Totally. Exactly. Yeah, it's all about the gear porn. Nobody's going to get any action except for the pedal board.
right.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, I mean, if you're not part of the act, in meaning you're not, your name's not on the marquee, you probably can't expect that. But definitely, I would have a conversation with your pals and just say, hey, throw me some bones here when the opportunity comes up, because the conversations they're having about you with people who are influencers are extremely valuable for you, and if each one of those is not being met at least with a nod your way, or an acknowledgement, I would definitely find a way to have that conversation. And it might be a little bit awkward, but I think if you explain to them that you're not out for anything except for really kind of what just the human decency thing to do is, if you can find a more appropriate way to say that, a more elegant way to say it, I think they'll get it.
Great.
Cool, man. It's a great question. Great topic.
Can you pull a Donald Trump and call up different musician magazines as Steven Dixon and say, hey, there's this really good saxophone player up there. Just thinking.
That's a
promote
good
it
idea.
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, this is Stella Davitt, and I'm with.
Oh my god.
It's so funny. All right, cool. Who else?
I've got a question that I posted before I was broadcasting my mic.
Oh yeah, you know
can
what? I
see
got it
in
right
the
here.
chat.
You got it right here. There it is.
That might serve a little more eloquently than I can just ramble on. Can anyone see that? Is that visible to everyone?
You guys see that in the chat? I just pasted it in there. Yeah. Now, can you remind me, because I don't remember what episode this was or when I said it, but give me. Do you remember what the context was? What we were talking about?
The episode and specifics. It was about personal economy. Or one of those stories about your own personal finance and economy, and realizing that your economy might not match that of said service provider.
Yeah.
And I listened to that, and it was one of those, the only episode that I've listened to, and I'm like, I might need to digest this a little bit for myself and see how it applies to my own situation. And I understand that when you have what I've referred to as the one-to-one relationship. When you were brought in you were brought in and you were one of the main creative professionals, and they've hired Dean Ogden or Simon Poole or anybody. And then I understand where you are in the hierarchy, so I'm willing to forego a certain term with payment. My personal issue is, for the last few years, I've been a subcontractor, in the sense that a production company has hired a music house that has hired me. And I do this for both television series and for advertising for various different Canadian music houses, and everyone has their own different structure and scale and schedule and whatnot. But there've been times where I've messaged producers being like, "Hey, I know I didn't get that Ford truck spot, but can you give me an ETA on payment?" They're like, "Holy shit, dude, I forgot you were on that email blast." Because sometimes producers just get like we need 17,000 options for
Right.
Friday at lunch, and so they just, I'm on one of the blasts that goes out to all their staff writers, and so you don't get payment, and you just have to shoulder tap a little bit, and you're like,
Yeah.
do you remember I did that? And very often, it's not an isolated incident. I've gotten the, "Oh shit, dude, I'm sorry. We'll fast track that. We'll send another invoice to accounting, and we'll make sure you get paid soon." So I just wanted to add that sort of that asterisk to that speech, that there are occasions where you're not directly in line with the pay structure, and you're not always viewed from the production company as a key creative, where the ad firm doesn't know who I am at all.
Right. Right. Yeah. To provide a little bit more context for that. So I think we're talking about two entirely different situations, because what I'm first of all, I totally agree with everything that you just said. When you're owed something, not even as a subcontractor, but just as a general contractor, if you're only one relationship removed from the client as opposed to the two that you're talking about, I still think that many times it's appropriate to remind them or nudge them if they're behind on their payment schedule. They need to make that right. I mean, they're obligated by contract to do that, right? Usually the terms dictate that. What I was talking about with the economy thing is more of a personal issue, like a desperation to be paid, right? Let me give you an example. When I was first in LA and first starting my composing career, there were several instances where I was just hard up for cash. I just needed the money, whether it was to pay rent or buy groceries or change my oil in my car or get to the next gig, or whatever the expense was, man. I really needed them to pay me, and I needed them to be on time, and I needed them to be disciplined, and they weren't always. Big corporations, it's you guys all know it takes them a longer time to right the ship. Has to go through a bunch of different people. Oh, I got to get approval from this and such, or whatever, whatever the excuse is, whatever the mechanism is. It just wasn't fast enough for what I personally needed at the time. And so my comment on that is more about that. It's more about making sure that you have yourself set up with enough cushion and enough margin so that when people don't respond as quickly as you need them to, but they're still not wrong, they're still not in the wrong, you just need them to be Johnny on the spot. But maybe the term is a net 30, and they have 30 days to pay. And on day 27, you're going, holy shit, man, I need this freaking money. But they still have 3 days. You're obligated to give them those 3 days, even though you're up against a wall and you're hurting, and you might have to call mom and dad for some money or borrow money from the bank or whatever. They have those 3 days. And so my point about that was about that. Now your thing, absolutely. If you're up against the 30 days and it's day 31, you have every right in the world to call them and say, dude, what the hell? Let's get this going here. The way that I've found to do that takes you sort of out of the equation as the artist is to just use an automated billing system to do it, so that you're not actually physically making a phone call and saying, hey, remember me? And they're like, oh shit, yeah, I forgot, like you said. Hitting FreshBooks and just resending that invoice one more time, just automated, just takes you out of the equation. It's not personal. It's just a business matter at that point. It's just a mechanized thing. And they get it, and then they look at it and they go, oh crap, we forgot, and then they pay it.
That's a good idea. I use FreshBooks, and that they definitely have that functionality. I've definitely been guilty in my early career of doing the desperate plea for cash.
Oh, me too, man. Totally.
Well, especially when you're used to any other sort of normalized industry where you get paid every 2 weeks, and then when you don't get your payment in the creative field, you're sort of like, don't they know? And you want to flip your desk and tear whatever you have left out.
Don't they know this is my 5th night of top ramen?
yeah. But you definitely learn a more soft touch as time goes on. Actually, I do have a broader question that I'd like to ask everyone in the chat. If this is if anyone else does something similar where they're a subcontractor or contractor, I normally work with the same group, and I have been doing so for 3 or so years. And I know that notoriously in my town they have the slowest payout scale, and so I don't really know what's standard for getting payment from an invoice? Because right now I'm looking at 4 to 6 months.
Oof.
And I've talked to other guys, and they're like, oh shit, yeah. And the problem is, this is one of the biggest subcontracted companies in, the eastern coast of Canada, who I've been doing a lot of work with lately. And so you never want to ruffle the feathers. I don't want to be put on their lower list of guys to call, because the money comes in. There's never been a problem with the money coming in. It is just catastrophically late. Like, to the point where it's like I'm checking the mailbox like a junkie. I'm just like, it's fucking check come in. And, my fiance's seen it many times. So I'm just curious what a standard pay scale is like for this, what a regular schedule would be like for anyone else.
Anybody want to field that before I jump in? What your experiences are, at least, with that? Nobody? Okay. 4 to 6 months, bro. That is like
brutal.
That's brutal. That's brutal. That's the worst I've ever heard. That's the worst I've ever heard. The longest I've ever gone without being paid for any kind of creative gig, anything, has been, I think, 3 months, and that was. They had some pretty good excuses for that. That I could kind of understand a little bit, That's been my experience with it anyway. I mean, just as far as standard for me has always been a net 30. Everybody that I've pretty much worked with the exception of a few people that have paid quicker than that, been about 30 days. And if it's going to be any longer than that, they notify, But I've never been in a situation where it's been 4 to 6 months. Now, if they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room and they can just get away with it because, like, hey, what are you gonna do? We are who we are. Screw you if you don't like it.
Right.
Which it kind of sounds like that's kind of the situation, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they know that you need them worse than they need you, right? So, it's a tough one, man.
They're a big company.
How long have you worked for them? How long has they been a client?
5 years.
5 years. So you have a pretty good relationship with them.
Yep.
Do you feel like you have a personal relationship with somebody there? Like,
I do, but they're in this sort of situation where they're large enough so that they're the executive producer that I work for is in a different department than the accounting. They're not necessarily good buddies. They're removed for a reason. Also, the company is large enough that they also hire the picture editor, I believe. So, picture probably gets paid before they do, and I'm a subcontractor for the audio company who's paid.
Gotcha.
So as the tree disperses, once you hit picture, there's only one place to go, and once you hit audio, there are far more drops to go down before
Might be helpful for you to know when they get paid. You know, when do they get paid from the client? You know,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're waiting for their waiting, then it's moderately understandable. You know,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
although a big company like that shouldn't have cash flow problems that they can't just slide you
No,
a dough and then collect on their end.
you know, they're a big company, and the series that I've been working on right now is on its third season, and it's on, you know, I've heard it's doing quite well in daytime TV and Discovery ID in the U.S. So there's not sort of like a supply and demand problem.
Right.
It's also one of these things that comes from being so far removed from production. When you're subcontracted, and I'm not, like, I've tried a few times to knock on the doors of the company to get the full-time writer gig, but I don't know what it's like in most other cities, but that doesn't really exist so much.
Yeah.
Not in Toronto anymore.
Yeah.
And they're happy to have me as freelance, and you know, I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds me. I'm just going to knock on other doors in the meantime.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough, man. I mean, gosh.
I'll keep you abreast. I'll let you know how this turns out.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't exactly know that there's an answer to that because of the mechanics of the situation. You know, when they're that big, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like waiting for the White House to call you and tell you that they're sending your payment.
Right,
You know?
right.
It's like,
It's one of those. It's unfortunate there's not enough competition in the town. You know?
exactly. Right.
With a few more, you know, 800-pound gorillas, you wouldn't have the option of holding back because you'd lose all your talent.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, there's no scarcity at all, and so you get the shaft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. That's
It's an
rough
ongoing
one,
battle.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be
The
curious
upside,
how
the upside is I know that it will eventually come in. Just the when is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good thing about it is that you know that they like your stuff and they're going to keep hiring you. You know, you got a good relationship with them. 5 years is a good track record. And you're in there. You're the guy. You know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's one of those situations, I guess, where I would just, you know, I would build against it, right? Just try and be pragmatic about planning for it, you know, if possible.
Right.
You know they're going to be late. They're always late. They're always at least 4 to 5, 6 months late. So
it's sort of a hibernation that you're planning for.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You just financially plan for it if you can. Try and get ahead of it, and then it becomes less and less an issue. But yeah, it
Right.
still sucks. All right. Let's see. We got Zachary, we got Steve, Steven, Simon, Mikey, Jeremiah, Devin, Davey, and Brian still hanging in there. You guys got anything? I'm gonna launch a topic if nobody has anything.
Actually,
Yeah.
I have something.
Go for it.
I don't know if it's as interesting as some of the other questions, but so basically the situation is for a couple of years I wrote music for a trailer music company, and as of the last year it ended up closing down, and I have this back catalog of about 40 tracks that I have the rights now. I own the rights to the tracks, and they're basically sitting around doing nothing. So I've been Can you hear this still?
Yeah, we
Everything just
lost
froze up.
you just for a second, or at least I did. You're back now, though.
Okay, so I've been looking for a company that would want to take the tracks, but I'm not sure if I should continue doing that or if I should instead look into getting them onto as many non-exclusive platforms as possible. Yeah, and I just don't really know what to do with the tracks, if that makes sense.
Um, how did they perform when you had them on the other with the other company? Did they earn for you, or did you take them back because they weren't really doing anything with them?
Yeah, well, the entire company closed down, and they gave me the rights back to the tracks. I think they're pretty good tracks, and they could do well in the right place. I don't know if basically most it seems that most trailer libraries just want to have original content, and I don't know if they'd be interested in taking music that's already been composed, and if I should instead just look into.
Sorry, man. At least on my end, I don't know if it's everybody or just me, but you keep dropping out, so I'm getting like every fifth word. But I think I get it. Um, have you solicited them around? Have you kind of felt out, tested the waters at all with anybody? Uh,
Yeah, there's been I think two companies that I've approached with them, and um, one of them wasn't interested in having previously written music,
so they have briefs. They want
and
you
the
to
other
fill them,
one
and they don't want
oh,
stuff that's already
looks like it's
been
dropping out again.
conceptualized.
Yeah,
Okay. And the second one?
sorry, the connection's pretty bad. The
Okay.
second one, they ultimately decided that it wasn't my music wasn't the right fit for their library.
Okay. Okay. Well, hmm. I always like to go with somebody specific and exclusive rather than doing the non-exclusive thing, just because it just I think for me, and I have a it's not a trailer music company, but it's a production music company in Singapore. We do a lot of sports stuff, mostly sports and gaming, Olympics, UFC, things like that. Um, and I've always gone directly, first of all, gone directly to networks. So it's a little bit different than your situation because we're dealing with TV networks. And I've always gone directly to TV networks and done deals directly because I can't stand to compete with other people on blind, briefs. To me, it's just kind of a waste of time. In your particular situation, which obviously is quite different, I think if I was you, I would just beat the brush a little harder, and go to
Mhm.
some other companies until you find one that is at least interested. They
Okay.
don't necessarily need to bite for it. They don't necessarily need to close a deal with you. But if you find one that's interested, you'll have the answer to a lot of your questions. First of all, you'll know if there's a market for it, and if people are actually open to it, and you'll also know if people are open to previously written material, that doesn't necessarily fit a current brief that they might have. I mean, there are a lot of
Mhm.
companies out there. I've sold libraries before. Again, on the TV side, not trailer stuff, but I've sold libraries wholesale to television networks who didn't have a built-in library and didn't already have granted this was some time ago, but didn't have their own in-house solution or weren't buying library from someplace else. Um, and I've done it several different ways. I mean, I've split publishing with them. You know I've never split writers, but I've split publishing several times. I've given publishing away entirely a couple of different times. It just depends on the situation. Um, how you want to sort of grease the wheels for them and make it more financially interesting for them. But I think I'd go directly to a few more places at least. And look, if you go to 6 or 7 more places and you get the same answers that you've gotten from the first two, then maybe your only choice is to go non-exclusive and go hit up, some of these other places that are just, they've got a repository basically of stuff online, and they're just, licensing as it comes in or whatever. But I think it would behoove you to get your salesman hat back on again, like you did with the first two, and go out to a few more places and see if, because right now you really don't know. They're good, but that doesn't count,
Yeah.
right? And doesn't count until somebody says, "Hey, we love this stuff and let's do something," or whatever. Or even, we love it, but we're just, unfortunately, we don't have the money, or we're not in the market, or, or even a, "Hey, we love this, but it's not the right stuff for us right now. What else do you have?" Getting out there and interfacing with potential clients and customers, and really kind of beating the streets, before you make this decision, I think will give you a lot more information to go on. Because right now you really don't know. I mean, the first two could have been a fluke, could have been the wrong companies to ask, could have been companies that financially weren't in the best, position to just buy something outright like that. Hey, 40 Qs for however much it is, we just don't have that kind of liquid cash asset laying around, whatever. I mean, there could be all kinds of reasons, and I think you don't have enough data yet to go on to really make a really solid business choice. So I'd probably go out and ask a few more people and really get a good 5 or 6 company sort of quorum, so that you know exactly what you're dealing with,
Yeah, that sounds good.
Can I
Thanks.
can I throw something in there on that?
For it, man. Yeah.
I just while you guys were talking, I just did a quick. I mean, granted, this is not scientific at all, but I just did a quick search on Google for trailer music library companies, and there's just tons. So yeah, I mean, you want to talk stats, you'd have to hit like 1,000 of them before it became significant. But it looks like there's just plenty out there that you could hit up pretty fast. A lot of them look like they're very approachable in terms of you could even just initiate communication online. Like APM Music looks like they've got some stuff that's already set up, and they rep 30. They have over 30 libraries, they say, for just trailers. So that might be something. Liquid
APM's
Cinema.
huge. APM's like
Yeah.
the Walmart of,
Yeah.
in terms of size, not quality. In terms of size.
Yeah, and then there's a Icon. And this is just looking at the first page of the of the Google results. And the really funny thing is there's a music library report, the top 200 frequently used trailer music cues, and what tracks they are, and it might actually be beneficial to look at that and say, like, well, this is what people are buying right now and using. So you can compare that against what you've got in your library already, what you've got in your body of work, and then see if that. It's like, okay, well, they're buying this stuff, and that's who's selling that, and they might want that more of that stuff.
Yeah, and you know what else too, Jeremiah? Go international, man. Don't just stick to the States or North America or wherever you're at, because there are plenty, and when you get, I mean, I can speak very, very candidly about Asia, because that's where I live most of the time and deal with a lot of clients there. But there's a lot of Hong Kong production houses that don't even use trailer music houses or music houses at all. They go directly to the composer and they buy large libraries all the time for stuff, for trailers, for films. I mean, they'll license it into films. They'll do television advertisements with it. They'll even do sometimes radio stuff, with trailer music that they license from various libraries. And so in a lot of them would rather buy a not a custom fit solution, although they do that too, but they'll retrofit things, to the stuff that they have currently that they need music for, as long as your stem delivery is appropriate and they can kind of monkey around with editing and stuff. But yeah, I mean, don't limit yourself to the American market, because depending on what your
Mhm.
stuff sounds like, and you might even consider, if it's not too much of a hassle, if you find a company that's interested, but it's not quite ethnic enough for them, or it's not quite Japanese sounding enough for them, or whatever, you can switch some stems for, switch out a solo violin for an erhu, and sometimes that makes all the difference. Sometimes that's enough, and they just go, wow, this is perfect, But there's tons of, especially Hong Kong. Um, if you're talking about like cinematic hybrid type stuff, a lot of Hong Kong production houses are looking for that big Hollywood action sound, that maybe to our ears is a little bit dated now, but to them, it's right on time, because they're always just slightly behind. They're always, I mean, you can probably imagine, you've seen the quality of of a lot of those kind of films and a lot of those projects, even though it's really great stuff, and a lot of amazing innovations are being, are being kind of pioneered by those guys over there. Sometimes they're still about maybe a year and a half behind the curve in terms of audio and what they appreciate, because they get everything secondhand. They get everything secondhand from us, and so they're just a little bit behind. So sometimes your old stuff that's laying around that has been dormant for a year and a half is like perfect for a Hong Kong action company, because they're like, oh, this is awesome. Oh man, you know, Batman Begins, great. They just freaking got it. So keep that in mind too. I've found that being international with stuff and really kind of broadening, and you can, most of those places have English-speaking people, or they at least have LOs, liaisons that kind of are intermediaries between, Western business people and Eastern business people, and so the language barrier is not an issue. And even if it is, you can, there's a lot of resources online. You can hire an attorney that's bilingual, and you can do all kinds of things. So check that out too. Just don't limit yourself. There's a lot more options internationally than there are domestically, so to speak. So something to think about.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I guess I just got discouraged too quickly by those two, and you just keep going and looking more places.
It's easy to do, man. It's easy to do, especially especially when you feel like timing is an issue, right? You don't want to wait too long, because you think, well, that market moves so quickly, and sounds change and trends change so quickly that I don't want to overstay my welcome. I need to get this sold right away, whatever. And so, sometimes for me, I've been there too, man. I've thought, well, we missed the boat on this one. It's gonna have to go in the scrap heap. Maybe we can recycle the drum stems out of it for something else or whatever. But then I discover some Taiwanese company that's just like all over it, and they're like, they want it. And maybe they don't want it for as much as you could have sold it to a Western company for, because, they just have more money and they pay more stuff, whatever. But it's still significant cash, and it's just laying around. It's like money in the bank, So it's food for thought. William Arnold, what's up, buddy? Uh-oh, I can't hear you for some reason. Oh, there you
I
are.
was muted. Hey.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I got on. I'm in.
Awesome, man. Welcome to the Wolf Pack here. Okay, cool. That was a good one, man. That was a good question. Who wants to go next? Anybody want to volunteer? We've just kind of randomly been throwing out topics, Bill. I mean, it's been pretty willy-nilly so far. No real structure, but everybody's had really good stuff, and so we've just kind of been on a roll here. So if you have anything, just shout it out.
Cool, I've been listening. Nothing to say right now.
Somebody's talking, but I can barely hear him.
Maybe my gain was down too low.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening this whole time.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I'll throw something else out there to you guys, because I've been struggling with this for a couple of weeks. Every once in a while, I would say probably, well, it actually happens pretty frequently now that I think about it. I would say every 3 or 4 months or so, maybe even more than that. Something happens in my career, whether it's with a person or with an event. Maybe I don't get a gig, or I get passed up for something, or somebody says something to me that's just like, I'm like, what? But I struggle with. I've heard a lot of people call it imposter syndrome, where you question yourself. You question, man, am I a fraud? Am I full of shit? Is this can I do this? Am I really good enough to do this? Am I fronting? Am I just acting like I can do it, but I know I really can't? Am I saying yes to things knowing I can't pull them off, and then defensively studying to the point where I finally actually do kind of pull it off, sort of, kind of, but not really? I'm not really the guy, but I can sort of fake my way through. All those kinds of those thoughts, all those doubts in your head, that come with a lack of confidence, a lack of self-confidence, but also, I think, external factors. What people say to you matters. What happens to you matters. What you land in terms of contracts and gigs matters, right? It all adds up and builds your confidence to a level to where you're able to confidently step into a situation and just get it done, right? And my struggle is that, I have pretty good self-esteem. I have pretty great confidence. I'm very good with people. I'm very good in a room. I can, I think I can say that, and there's, I don't feel hedgy about that at all, about saying that. But I'm also a people pleaser, which is a disaster. I like for people to be happy, and I like for people to be satisfied, and I like for people to think of me as somebody who is dependable and gets the job done and is easy to work with. And I also, for legacy's sake, and just for the sake of just being a good human being, I also want to be known as somebody who has high integrity and can be trusted, and doesn't lie about stuff, isn't falsifying information, or hyping things up to get ahead, which I know we all have either seen or dealt with firsthand. I don't want to do any of those things. I want to just be me, and I want to ride on my accomplishments, and I want to ride on my skill set, and I of course always want to improve and get better, but I also don't want to inflate what I do for the purpose of getting ahead, or shortcutting anything. Ideally, I would rather not get a gig and learn from it than get a gig I can't handle and have to really barely get by on it. Do you know what I mean? And unfortunately, because I'm a people pleaser, because I'm probably to some degree, I have a self-esteem issue that I haven't dealt with. Maybe, I'm not really sure what it is, but I let people affect my opinion of myself, sometimes to the point of defeatism, where I start doubting myself. I start thinking, man, maybe I don't have what it takes, maybe I don't have the Maybe I don't have the skills or the discipline or the DNA of you know, championship DNA to go to the next level in my career and achieve that next, mountain, crest that next mountain, if you will. And one of the things that I'm learning, and it's taking me so long to learn this, man, it sometimes it takes me 50, 60 times to learn the same shit over and over and over again. But hopefully I eventually will learn this. I think I know the answer, but I haven't quite accepted it as my own and lived by it yet. And that is that for every one person that fills you with doubt, there's 20 that don't feel that way at all. There's 20 people who believe in you or have gotten something from you that's valuable or have observed something in your career or something that you've done that they can then kind of, reformat to their situation and use to build themselves up, which is all great stuff, And if I could remember that every time somebody bags on me or accuses me of something or decides that they're going to cut me down for their own personal Machiavellian purposes or, whatever the case is, if I could just remember that, if I could just remember in those moments that if I was to back out of my career like a NASA shot from Earth and back up and see the macro of what's really going on, I've probably done way more good than bad. And the bad things that I've done or the mistakes that I've made, the screw-ups, have, within reason, obviously I've done some evil shit in my time, just like everybody else, but I think definitely over the last 2 decades for sure, everything that I've screwed up, I've intended to not screw up. And my heart has been in a place where I wasn't trying to purposefully screw anybody over. I wasn't trying to destroy the situation so that other people would suffer. I wasn't trying to, not deliver on the parameters that were set forth because I was lazy or procrastinating or I didn't care. My intent, my heart intent was always to do the very best that I can do. And if I fell short and I didn't achieve that, it was because it wasn't because I didn't try, And I've talked to a lot of people in the last 2 weeks especially. It's been weird, these conversations that I've had. Actually, David Freeman and I were just talking about this the other night on the telephone. That I think creative people especially, we just have this gene in us, or we have this mechanism that is, on one level, we don't really care what people think. We don't care what people think. We just want to do what we're doing, and it's an expression of ourselves. And if people don't like it, then fine. But at least we got it out because we have to give birth to these things. On the other hand, on the other side of the pendulum swing, we deeply, deeply, desperately care what people think about us and what people think especially of our work. And finding a balance in that somehow, finding an equilibrium that you can live with, some sort of a compromise that you can live with that, I think is super important. And again, I haven't figured it out. I haven't figured it out. And maybe I never will, but I feel like the awareness of it alone is worth $1 million. It's like knowing that there probably isn't a balance, and that I'm talking about two extreme ends of a spectrum that at least I know that somewhere inside that, you know, that measurement stick, if I can just fall in there somewhere, I'm okay. And realizing that the balance probably is never going to happen, I'm always going to feel one way or the other about it, is probably enough. So I don't know, you know, I'm just saying this in the hopes that somebody can relate to it, you know, that's listening to this or that's watching this, and just sharing something that I've really been thinking about it a lot. I've really been thinking about it a lot, and it hasn't been necessarily triggered by any one instance, just kind of a collection of things. Thinking about my next big album project, you know, and you know, there's been a lot of struggle with it, trying to pull it together. It's ambitious, it's big, it's probably a little bit beyond me in terms of anything that I've pulled off before, and there's yin and yang in that too. You know, it's like I want to be ambitious, and I want to go big, and I want to push myself, and I know there's things about it that I can't do myself, and that I'm going to have to rely on other people to help me with, or just completely rely on them without my help, even just let them do it because they're the experts in that particular, you know, component of it. But at the same time, I don't want to go too big that it's not Dean Ogden. You know, it's all these people, and then, oh yeah, Dean Ogden did part of it. Dean Ogden played the drums. You know, I want to be careful, and in that sort of equation somewhere, I question myself. You know, am I good? Am I a big enough musician to be able to pull something like this off? Is this beyond my scope of skill? Is this beyond my scope of talent? Is this beyond my, you know, my abilities? And I've had a couple of people tell me, yeah, it is. You know, you're not good enough to do this. And for a minute, I believed them, you know, and for a minute, I mean like a couple of days or a week or 2 weeks. And then I got angry, and then I got pissed off, and I thought, you know what, screw them. I'm gonna totally do this. Like, you know, there's no way. Oh, well, there's no way now. I'm not doing it. You know, just to spite them, I'm just gonna frickin' do it. And,
you never know until you try.
And so there's stages of it too. But I guess yeah, you know, I mean, who knows? You know, the worst that can happen is I fail, right? And I'm just back at square one. But I guess the point of this, you know, this little speech or essay or whatever it is, or, you know, maybe I'm preaching to myself, is that, you know, there's always going to be somebody or something that doesn't or don't get it. You know, there's always going to be a person who doesn't get it. There's always going to be a scenario or a collective group of people who just don't get it. You know, they think they know. They think they know. They think they know what you ought to be doing. They think that they know how you ought to do it. Their perception of the things that you've done is probably skewed to a certain benefit of their own. You know, I just dealt with somebody who doubted me about something, and after thinking about it for, you know, I've kind of come to the conclusion that, you know, them trying to talk some sense into me, quote unquote, was really sort of a deceptive, well, I'm going to say deceptive, but yeah, kind of a statecraftian way of them sort of honing in on what I was doing and taking it for themselves, masquerading as altruism, trying to help me out, be a bro, you know. And I think that because of my deficiency sometimes of self-esteem. I let that get to me, and I let it bother me for a pretty significant amount of time, and I lost some time over it. I lost some momentum, and I lost some traction in what I was doing. I kind of lost sight of my goal and the whole reason for doing the thing in the first place, and I let them sort of derail me a little bit, and start believing their press instead of believing in my original vision and idea that I had. And so maybe it's just an encouragement if anybody is dealing with something similar, or anybody is dealing with anybody similar, that step back and take a look at yourself from a macro point of view, as opposed to tunneling in on this one thing that this one person is saying, or this one gig that didn't go right, or this one thing that you didn't get, or this one thing that didn't work out. And pull yourself back from it and go, okay, that's one thing out of 100 things I could look at that were actually awesome and were great, and I'm letting this one thing just drive me down into the dirt when it's not necessary. It's easy to bury yourself in something that's immediate, as opposed to feeling rewarded and feeling content in the sort of the basket of things that you've woven over time that are collectively your career, and so it's just something that I'm working through right now, that I'm learning for myself, and if it resonates with somebody, then that's cool.
Well, I kind of look at it as like a seesaw, like you're talking about implementation. And so what I envision you talking about is a seesaw. And on one side, it teeters over towards success and great things happening. And of course, the other side is all the crap that happens, right? And it's always going up and down and up and down, right? And the center, though,
Right.
is education. And then the out and what's going on the teeter on the seesaw is the implementation. And so maybe we tend to not focus enough on the center, because we're looking for direct answers, solid core answers to keep us stable right there in the center. But the thing is about creators, man, is like the seesaw is on the frickin' Yangtze, man. It's high tide. It's flowing all the time. We're looking for core answers that can deliver us some solid comfort and confidence. And it's just, that's not the life of creativeness. I mean, every one of us here makes shit out of nothing. It can be hard, and sometimes it's super easy, but it's ever flowing. So I constantly, I just see what you're talking about is just, it really is. It's like a seesaw on the deck in the middle of the perfect storm all the time, and just where our development is always ever changing, always flowing, always moving. And so long as we understand that there is no center, there's no core, so long as we build on our relationships, we reach out to people, we reach out to friends, we reach out to colleagues, say, look, this is what I'm dealing with, and constantly getting a back and forth, we won't have, it will be harder to focus in on the dicks that tell you really awful stuff like that, man, and move. But just keep creating. I don't know. There's no solid answer. It's just always flowing. But that's at least the vision that I see when you're talking about that. But yeah, it sucks. Reach out to friends and family, man. I mean, it's your core. Educate yourself. If you're never not sure about something, well, let's Google it. It's learn some more on your downtime between implementation.
Sure. An interesting thing on top of that is,
and also discerning.
Sorry, continue.
No, I'm.
All right, sorry. I'll just add to that unless you're working regularly in creativity and you're dealing with a lot of people who have sort of normal conventional jobs, explaining that life is a teeter-totter or a seesaw looks like imbalance to everybody else. Like that doesn't necessarily seem like it's got any grounding in anything concrete. like normally people, like everybody else who doesn't work in this sort of profession has a very, hold on, this is the easiest way to portray it if I'm mirroring, has like a very linear rise as opposed to a variety of cycles like us, which are ideally, rising and falling, but in the end we'd like to continue rising. So when you explain, or when I explain to friends of mine who have corporate gigs that I don't know if I'm on an upswing or a downswing right now, that's like a major red flag to people. Like they don't seem like that looks like I have a strong footing. And often it makes me question whether I have a strong footing, because I come from sort of corporate parents who have, a very sort of conventional education and upbringing and career, and I can only really see the progress when looking back in years, because at the point right now I feel like I've just been launched out of a catapult. It's like, am I on an ascent or a descent? I'm not going to know until the year's over. I'm not going to know where I stood in this year.
Dean, I wanted to
Like
add.
Dean says, peaks and valleys.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. It is peaks and valleys, seesaw. It's the same. It's the same metaphor for, I think, the same thing you guys are talking about. And I also think it's really important to discern, or learn how to discern, the difference between somebody critiquing your choices as a creative and somebody critiquing your choices as a business person. Because like you said, Simon, I mean, a lot of people can relate more with the hard data of a business decision than they can whether or not you take a gig, let's say, or whether or not you did anything creative this month that brought in any income. Their focus is on the numbers and the income and the admin and the the financials and those kinds of things, the hard data of results, rather than what makes us intangibly consent as creative human beings. And that's the part, I think, that people, that's the shit in the air that nobody gets. Like they can't grab onto it, and so they don't know how to define it. They don't know how to talk about it. They don't even really know. I mean, my mom still thinks I fucking play drums at people's bar mitzvahs every once in a while. Like that's what I do for a living. It's like, so it's just a different, it's a completely different paradigm, like you said, for people who are the 9-to-5 cubicle, or the 9-to-5 blue collar type person. And I think it's important for us to learn how to discern people's creative critique from their business critique, because one can be very valuable, the other one not so much. I mean, if you're self-aware enough to know whether or not you belong in the game, and you feel that you do, and you're not BSing yourself, and you're not American Idoling momming yourself to stay in, then people's critique of your creative game is really completely irrelevant. That's your statement to the world about what it is that you want to say, versus will it sell, will it blend, like will it sell or will it fail. Those are the kinds of issues that you could listen to other people about that maybe know a little bit more than you, or maybe know just as much as you do but have a different perspective on it or a different vantage point. But creatively, man, you do yourself, you do you, which I hate that phrase, but it applies. You do you, and you don't listen to anybody. You put your stamp out there, you put your definitive voice out there, and your declarative statement about what it is that you're trying to say artistically, and that goes unchallenged. People can love it or hate it, and they make that judgment on it, but it doesn't keep it from being out there in the world. It still has to be given birth to. It still has to be put out. And then the hard data of business and the aspects of commercialization of that thing is debatable, but the
So
creative
that's
part
what
never
your
is,
friend
you know.
was
And I
addressing
don't
with
wrestle
you
with that as
was the
much as I do
commercial
with
part?
was the creative part, you know,
Oh,
saying that
shit.
it's not. Yeah, I mean, saying that it's not both. You know, basically saying that it's not good enough, or it's not understandable enough, or it's not accessible enough for people to get a hold of, to want to put their money down on it, and you know, whatever. So I guess it's a little bit of both, but I took it as, well, it's not good enough that people will listen to it, you know, or it's not good enough that people would want to watch it or read it or rent it, you know. That's what it felt like, and I've just kind of come to the realization that they can have an opinion on my creativity, but I cannot let them dictate to me what's right or wrong about it, because there's been a lot of wrong art out there that has impacted a lot of people in the right way. You know, and maybe that's what we do. Maybe that's what we do sometimes. We do wrong shit that's right for us, and therefore it's right for a certain faction of people. And nobody can tell us that that's right or wrong, other than to say that it may or may not, you know, make us that house in the Hamptons that we want, you know, which is very valuable advice, but not on our creativity. So that's what I was thinking about that. Anybody have anything else?
It's definitely a big topic that I think everybody faces, this imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those
Yeah,
things
it
where like,
is.
welcome to the club.
Common.
Yeah. And I think it's really two big problems. One is that we're experts on our own weaknesses. You know, we see everything and probably don't perceive that other people have the same weaknesses. You know, they just don't let it show. Or different ones, you know. That's part of it. The other thing is, I find even if people, you were talking about storing up, you know, memories of people complimenting and liking your stuff, I find that even when people give me those compliments and boosts, it feels good, but then I could question it. You know, I start to think, well, they don't really know what they're talking about, you know, which is kind of stupid, you know, just take the compliment.
Sure. It gets even worse when to take it even a step further, at least I think this, when they're not even talking about your work. You know, yeah, you're a great musician, but you're a shitty dad. Or you're a great musician, but you know, you lost your family, or your wife is not happy, or your husband's not happy, or you neglect your friends, you know. You're only around when you need something from people. I've heard that many times. You know, somebody in my life who's no longer in my life, a friend of mine, another musician, said to me one time, "Yeah, I'm just sick of Dean on, Dean off, so I'm done." And I was like, "What does that mean?" Well, what he meant was, you know, I'm a really good friend when I'm not busy. And then when I get busy, I disappear into my work, and I'm a shitty friend, you know? Which I totally own that. I do that all the time.
Wow.
There are people in this row of pictures here that could testify to that, absolutely. That when I'm busy, I completely retreat and I disconnect from the world and I tunnel into what I'm doing and I do my thing, and then I emerge 4 months later and I want to have a relationship again, and they're like, "Hey, where have you been? You know, hey, I want to talk this out." And I'm like, "Talk what out? I was busy." You know, it's
I
not a
was
big deal to me, but it's a huge deal to them.
I always thought that
And
was a good thing.
yeah,
I'd always thought, you know, if he's busy, that's good.
I don't
That's a
know.
good thing.
Yeah.
You're actually doing something, and making a career for yourself. It's like, what? It's like, I have to just set aside time to constantly talk to you because you want to have a relationship with me all the time because we have different kinds of personalities. It doesn't quite make any sense, but at least to me it doesn't. But yeah, it's like when you go off and
Yeah,
do
it
something,
doesn't.
you know
It
you're
doesn't.
busy.
It doesn't. Right, right. And I've never been the kind of person who really is good at those kinds of relationship with those kinds of people. I'm a much better fit for the kind of person who is secure enough in themselves that we can not talk for 6 months, and then when we pick up the phone and we talk, it's like we never stop talking. You know, we just pick right up where we left off. I mean, David, I can use David Freeman as an example because we're really super close. We talk every couple of days on the phone. But if we miss 2 weeks, I miss talking to him. But I know that the next time that I pick up the phone with him, it's going to be like we never missed a beat, you know, because he's doing his thing, he's independent, I'm doing my thing, I'm independent, and we're just not needy people in that way, you know. But then there's other people in my life who are super needy, and they need whatever they need, whatever the payoff is, whatever the racket is for them. In the relationship that we have, they need that touch. They need that reach out every couple of days or every week or whatever it is. And I just can't allow that to be my problem. You know, I love them, care about them. I'm interested in what they're doing. I love them as people. I care about their well-being. But I can't have that kind of friendship with them. You know, it's too much of a commitment, and I can't do it. And so balancing those things with people's expectations of you, I think is, you know, like William said, it's a really deep topic. We've already gone way deeper than I was even thinking, but it's pretty fascinating. You know, it's fascinating. To me, what we're talking about right now is the real work-life balance. You know, my family gets me. They leave me alone. They let me do my thing. I have way more problems with friends than I do with my wife or my son or my dad or my mom or my brother. It's always friends. It's always friends. It's always colleagues and friends that I have the issues with. Family totally gets it. But the people who are doing the same thing as me, who are always complaining about work-life balance, they're the ones who fucking cause it. You know? And it's so fascinating to me that that's the case. So, anyway, I already feel 40 pounds lighter having just shared that with you guys.
Well, good.
So I have
is
I have on my about half of your faces are frozen, and I can't. Brian Holt's face has been frozen for like a half an hour with this look on it. Pissed off. So I don't know if he can still hear. But you guys good? I can go for about another 20 or 25 minutes if we need to. If you guys have other things. Anybody else who hasn't stepped in yet want to step in?
Looks like Zachary's trying to speak up there. He's unmuted, but might want to check your mic, Zach. I don't think it's turned up.
Maybe that's it. Is
There
that
you go.
working?
Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
There he is. Yep.
Hey guys.
Gotcha. Cool, man. What's up?
Here we are. Here we are again.
Here we are again. How's
Very
the
cool.
weather in Los Angeles?
It's been windy, man. It's been windy and cold. It was raining yesterday,
Really?
but
Wow.
you know the last 2 weeks have been nice and shiny, so it's actually kind of nice. It's been kind of hot and it's starting to cool down, so it's not so bad.
Cool, man. Good.
Right on.
What's happening?
So lots of stuff going on. I just started an internship at Warner Brothers Studio with Phil Eisler, from composer Phil Eisler.
Phil Eisler, yeah, congratulations! I saw that. That's awesome.
Yeah, man. And I've it's my first internship, and I'm going into it. It's unpaid, but it's on the lot. They're working on feature films at the moment, and you kind of get to see the whole behind-the-scenes process of how they're delivering everything to the dub, and how the rigs are set up, and they have additional composers doing additional music, and they all it's kind of neat because his office is right across from the music's office, and so they just jump back and forth. It's super convenient, and they make decisions on the spot. So it's interesting to see that sort of dynamic. It'd be really cool to sort of to have that kind of gig,
It's freaking priceless.
I guess my question is, I don't know.
That's
my
a
first
huge opportunity. It's great.
Yeah. First time in an internship, and I'm also starting classes with Brian Ralston at the UCLA Extension. He's doing like a whole business of film music thing, which I'm really looking forward to. So it just kind of feels like I'm moving into another space of learning, another space of education, and it's all kind of just a period of thinking about ways to hone the craft and sharpen the knife, and I'm trying to get the most out of the experience, and I'm wondering what other, while I have the time on my hands, while I'm living at home, while I'm saving money and paying off and upgrading my rig and working on my craft, what sorts of things should I be investing my time in? While I have the luxury of, not having to worry about paying rent and that sort of thing. Or like, how do you get the most out of an internship like that?
Has anybody been in a similar situation where you've interned with somebody or had an intern apprentice under you?
I have.
Kind of shed some light on? Who's that?
Devin?
Oh, yeah. I had one intern a while back, and while I was in IT, and actually it was really interesting because the person that was my intern had no experience whatsoever going into it, so it was kind of like a blank slate. And I think what it is for me, what I wish my intern would have done was really just said, here's some areas that I'm really weak in, and I really need, this is what I need to know more about. Can you help me with this? Or do you have anything I can do that can help me build up my skill in that? Because what I had was basically, like I said, a blank slate. So I'm like, okay, well, here's how you here's how you wire a Cat5 jack with to the 468B standard, and just remember these color patterns, and so now make 50 more of these for me, and that helped her a lot. But for me, it was like a day-to-day kind of struggle. It's like, what is it that you're having problems with? If you can find a good focus or focal points and say, this is where I'm weak and I need help with, they might have something already there in mind. It's like, oh yeah, well, here, go do these things.
So it's also a matter of being showing some humility and being vulnerable and admitting, look, I suck at this, and I really could use some help in this, and I don't know what I'm doing here, and just kind of letting your guard down in that respect, and not being afraid to ask for that kind of help.
Yeah, and just not be afraid to ask questions in general, also, because you're working inside one of the biggest studios like ever, and you have access to all this stuff, so you can ask a bunch of questions now that a lot of people would never ever be able to actually ask because you've got the people right there. And yeah, it does require some introspection and just looking back and looking inside, saying, well, this is what I'm really good at, but this is the stuff I really suck at. So this is what I should be asking about.
I think
I
the
also
question.
think.
Yeah, to
Sorry,
kind
go
of
ahead.
piggyback on that a little bit too. I think that. Oh, sorry, did I talk over somebody?
No. Continue.
Okay, yeah, just real quick. I'll be brief.
Cool.
To piggyback on that, Zachary, what Devin was just saying, I also think that in an apprentice situation, when you're interning for somebody, particularly if the kind of skewed their way. I mean, you're not being paid. It's a killer opportunity. Phil's a great guy. I've met him just a couple of times. I don't know him or anything, but from what I've kind of gathered from him, he seems like a super cool dude. And obviously, he's extremely busy, and his career has just taken flight over the last 5-6 years. So he's a great person to, he's probably really only 5 or 6 or 7 years ahead of you in terms of, scalability and momentum in his career. And so it's the perfect situation. You're not apprenticing for Howard Shore, who's been doing it for 35 years and, is already probably tired of it, right? I mean, he's really just getting started, even though he's incredibly successful and has a lot of experience under his belt in a very short amount of time. So it's perfect for you. And so what I would say is, jumping on what Devin said, yes, it's important to be humble, and it's important to admit that you need help in certain areas, but it's also important to expect them to help you. It's it's a two-way street. You're making a transaction in this relationship. You're giving him something that he needs in return for something that you need. And it's important to expect that payment to take place at some point. What a lot of interns and apprentices do, and I've had interns before. Some of you probably know Elisa Rice. She's the best intern I ever had in ever, and she was awesome. And she did this. She came to me and she said, "Here's what I need from you. And if you can't give it to me, please tell me, because I need it. And if this isn't the right situation," she said, "I'll bust my ass for you. I'll do everything that you ask me to do. But I know that I've got to go get my benefit somewhere else, because I cannot leave LA and go back to Berkeley without knowing these things." And that was hugely beneficial to me, because I was so busy and I wanted to teach her. I had no really idea of what I was going to do with her. I just basically thought, oh great, here's another person that I can put to work so that I can be less busy to concentrate on the things I need to work on. But the reality of it is that it's a transaction. It's a two-way street. You're giving him something that he needs in trade for what you need as an emerging composer, as somebody who wants to be him in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long, whatever. And so it's important for you to, at some point, that payment has to come, and so and the best way that I think you can do that, or at least one of the ways that I think is a good way to do that, is for you to learn to anticipate problems, because every composer needs their assistant and their interns to be anticipatory about problems that are coming their way. Nobody, you've probably dealt with this many times as a creative person, even without an assistant. The worst thing to deal with is unexpected problems. Unexpected things that come up that you're like, oh crap, everything was going perfect, and now we're at a standstill because such and such forgot to do this, or somebody didn't do their job, or whatever. If you have somebody on your team who can see those things out ahead of you even, and head them off at the pass so that they never make it to your desk, that person is frickin' golden, man. You'll never want to get rid of that guy or that girl who knows how to do that kind of stuff. That is the perfect, in my opinion, the perfect assistant character trait is to be able to anticipate problems before they even get to me. I shouldn't even know that those things were an issue at one point because you dealt with them. And then when you do that enough and you build up that equity, you can go to the person and say, hey, by the way, did you know that blah, 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 blah? No, that's what that was about? Yeah, but I took care of it. Oh, wow, great job. Okay, yeah, now teach me this one thing I need to know.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, it's like a guilt thing.
Makes
You know, like
sense.
guilt them into it. It's like, dude, I just saved your ass. Now you save mine on this little thing. You know, I'm working on this student project. What do I do with this? Blah, 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 whatever.
Right.
To me, that is like as an employer, as somebody who has employees and has people that work for me and do things for me, nothing guilts me more than them coming to me and saying, guess what, man? I just saved your life and you don't even know it. So in trade for that, how about telling me how to orchestrate this little piece of music or, you know, whatever. And I'm just like, oh, shit, I got to drop what I'm doing and do that because that person just saved me 10 grand or whatever, right? So if you can figure out how to do that and anticipate problems and head them off at the pass so that you're sort of the governor, you know, of how much crap rolls downhill on them, you'll be in such a better position coming out of that internship for a recommendation for another one or for them to recommend you and, you know, this kid is awesome. So, you know, whatever. I see that happen all the time. I see composers move somebody up the ladder, as it were, because they were a blue chip problem solver. And if it'll take you a while to get the routine and sort of read the terrain and go, okay, well, he has to deal with this every day. My God, why isn't somebody doing something about that? Do something about it, even if it's the wrong thing. And here's the other thing about it too: don't be afraid to make mistakes, just like you're not afraid to admit them either. Because just about every composer or a plumber or a doctor, it doesn't matter. They would rather have you make a decision and decide to do the wrong thing than to not do anything at all. Indecision and stagnation, being somebody who's not active and is not a self-starter, is like you're just dead weight. You know, why are you even on my team? I need somebody who's going to take initiative and do things on their own, because I can fix problems, but I can't keep them from happening. Do you know what I mean?
Right. That makes a whole lot of sense. Wow. Thank you. That's tremendously helpful. And
sorry, Simon, that was a little longer than I thought it was going to be.
Not at all.
Cool.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you, Devin.
Yeah, man. Good luck. That's a killer opportunity, man. Those are the kinds of opportunities that that just boost careers, man. I mean, and you're very fortunate to be there, but you're also very talented to be there. You know. Don't let anybody tell you, wow, you're lucky, man. You're so lucky. You're so lucky. Because maybe you are a little bit lucky. You know, maybe you were born under a good sign. I don't know. But I think those kind of opportunities come to people who prove themselves and who really work hard and persevere. You and I talked about this in November. Do you remember?
Right. I do.
In this very situation, you know, and you were kind of like, man, I don't know what's going to happen, and, you know, I don't know what I should do, and, you know, and I said, dude, stick with it, man. Just keep fucking working. And I've watched you do it. We talked about it at the Rebel Creative Hangout even. You know, when I was in LA in January. I mean, you've persevered yourself into this position, and that's why you're there. And so own that and be proud of that, because that's really a huge accomplishment. It's really a huge accomplishment.
I never thought about it that way, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, it's big league, man. It's good.
That counts as a big win, doesn't it?
What's that?
That counts as a big win, doesn't it? I think so.
I think so. That's a huge win. I think Devin needs to change the headline to, you know, Zachary's list. Zachary's Wednesday list. Who's got one of those? All right. Well, I'm going to make a last call here. This has been really great, you guys. You know what? I think sorry that the Spreecast thing didn't work out. We talked about a lot of really great things, and I appreciate you guys all making the time to be here and taking the time to show up. And I know some of you had to get up very early or stay up very late in order for it to happen. But I just really appreciate you guys, you know, making a priority and being here. This is really great. So unless anyone else has anything else, I think we can wrap it. And if anyone
to be
has
here with
anything,
all of
please
you.
feel free. I mean, I'm free until tonight. So
Good luck with your concert.
yeah, it's terrific. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Well, I just want to say it's
All right.
cool to put some
Cool.
faces with names.
Well, this will be.
Bet.
That's right. Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, it is. Some of you I haven't seen for several years on Google Hangouts. Very cool. All right, guys, go be successful.
Nice to talk to you guys.
Have a great day. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers.
See all of you
All right,
soon.
cheers.
See ya.